to set up my times. Go ahead and just show me the screen. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. What do you do when success is not an option? That's not a very American question. We don't have a spot for failure in our cultural bubble, do we? We would say, well, what do we do when failure is not an option? How can I salvage the situation to the best of my ability and come out on top? And that's a very American way to approach things. It brings in our national optimism. But there are times when that's simply not a realistic option under the circumstances. We have to consider, what do we do when success isn't possible? And I start the speech today having grabbed my purse and walked out of work in a huff today after trying very hard not to write rank amateurism on an exit interview survey that I'm completing for my employer as I'm leaving my job next week. And that's the whole crux of the speech for me, because everything I've done to ensure a good transition has fallen absolutely flat around me. And with 2 weeks on the clock, I have to admit, success isn't going to be an option here for me. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's something that I can get over. And it's something that all of us can get over when we find ourselves in this situation. So you look and say, okay, it's not going to go well. What can you do? First part is to assess the situation. And you've already done some of that when you've looked through and said, plan A didn't work, plan B didn't work, plan C didn't work. You got all the way down to plan T, and unlike Henry Ford in the Model T, that American optimism, it still isn't working out. So, you've looked through, you've decided all of these things have not worked, and I've tried my best. So move from possible solutions to assessing instead, what part of that was my responsibility? Can I let some of this go? Success isn't an option here, but I don't have to take the fall for this one. And that's an important thing to do. Give yourself permission to think honestly and clearly about the situation, and give yourself perspective. When you're at the middle of the bubble and the bubble is spinning a vortex around you heading towards failure, you can say, well, there's a life raft up there. I can get myself out of this situation if I think about it honestly, objectively, and give myself permission to feel forgiveness. So, when we're talking about work situations, it's rarely one person's fault. There's a whole system of decisions and factors around that, and you don't have to take the whole thing on. So, you've reached a point where you've now assessed the situation. You have a sense of what you are and are not responsible for. And if you're not responsible for it, let it go. That's a great option, because now that weight is off your shoulders, it's off your chest, and you can leave the job knowing that you did your honest best. But there's another side to that, and that is some of what happened might be partially your responsibility. And how do you deal with that? We think about the vortex again, that downward spiral. Self-pity is one of the fastest spinning downward spirals. I'm sure we can all agree on that. But that's one that you can't let yourself be sucked down all the way into the bottom. Instead, you're going to look for that life raft again. And options you have for this life raft to get out of it are saying, well, I tried and it didn't work, but I've thought about it. I understand why it didn't work, why I might not want to do that again, and what other options I might have for getting out of it. Because the answer is, you've put in your 2 weeks notice, you've done your best, and you can still let it go. Success might not have been an option for you, but getting out of the situation, moving yourself into a better position is something that you can be successful at, and you should.